Today's big story. It's never happened before. Year-end exams for Primary 3 and 4 students will be cancelled. But it is back to school for the kids next week, with face-to-face classes resuming once more. And a seafood restaurant is bringing back old favourites from 1956. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. In an unprecedented move, the Education Ministry has cancelled the year-end exams for Primary 3 and 4 pupils. But the Primary 5 exams will continue under safe management measures. MOE says cancelling the exams will, quote, allow more time for curriculum recovery due to disruptions brought about by COVID-19. Instead, to report and give feedback on a pupil's learning progress, as well as recommend subject combinations, schools will draw on information from school-based assessments conducted throughout the year. The announcement drew mixed reactions from netizens who commented on the Straits Times' Facebook post. Some, like Wang Tun-jun, welcomed the cancellation, saying examination is only a means to test children's comprehension of matters taught. As long as knowledge is passed on to the students, education has taken place. But for Ivan Yeo, who claims to be a parent of a P3 pupil, he doesn't agree with the no exams move, as children nowadays are too relaxed and have no urgency. I'm happy to have the Straits Times' senior education correspondent, Sandra Davie, with me. Welcome to the show, Sandra. Sandra, quick reaction from you. What do you make of this latest announcement?
Well, I think it's a good decision. MOE said that it's for curriculum recovery, meaning that the topics that they missed out on earlier in the year because of the disruptions due to COVID-19. You know, assessments are important. They are part of the education process, but teachers are doing it all the time, right? They just do it in different forms. And it's important to do it because you need to understand as an educator whether children are keeping up with the curriculum and understood the subjects you're teaching, the different topics. And so they hold different forms of assessment. So it's not like they don't have assessments at all through the year. They do, several in fact, and that should be adequate. And I think it is also important for them to cover topics which are for their level of understanding into a subject. So it's good to balance the two, and it's good for students to learn, not for the sake of a test or exam, but just for the sake of learning and enjoying learning, right? Not necessarily for an exam that they're sitting for.
And it is an unprecedented move. So, Sandra, how would you allay any concerns from parents that may arise from today's announcements?
Okay, so some parents are worried that their kids do not have the practice, you know, or the experience of sitting for an exam, and they need that discipline to sit down and study. But as I said earlier, you know, assessments as an ongoing thing is part of the education process. And they've had several continual assessment tests, which would have given them adequate practice. And so there's really no need to worry. And besides, next year, I'm sure we'll be back to having mid-years and year-end examination for kids. So they will have adequate practice.
Conversely, the Primary 5 examinations are still going to continue. Why is it particularly important for it to be continued?
Well, you have a new PSLE scoring system that's come into place this year. So I think it's important for the students and their parents to understand where their Primary 5 kids, who are just 1 year away from taking the PSLE, to understand where they stand in relation to the new scoring system, because as you know, that kind of decides their progression into secondary school.
Well, thank you so much for your inputs, Sandra. I've been speaking with Sandra Davie, Senior Education Correspondent for the Straits Times. Meanwhile, home-based learning will end this week with face-to-face classes resuming for P3 to P6 pupils first from Monday, October 11th, followed by those in P1 and 2 on the 13th. Parents of P1 to P5 pupils are to give them an ART swab on either Friday or Saturday before returning to school. The results must be reported via a link that will be sent. MOE will give more details to special education schools on the phased return of their students. Tuition, enrichment centres and private education institutions may also resume from next Monday, but MOE is encouraging holding classes online as much as possible. Education Minister Chan Chun Sing posting on Facebook that not all children have conducive environments for home-based learning, adding that putting children on a prolonged HBL schedule can have a negative impact on their academic progress and socio-emotional well-being. And so he says HBL must only be a last resort to be used in a targeted manner. Finance Minister Lawrence Wong has been sharing a few key lessons from Singapore's pandemic response. During a panel discussion on public health care in ASEAN, he highlighted the importance of reducing wastage and costs, building buffers in the system to scale up during a public health emergency, right-sizing and conserving medical resources, as well as improving outcomes such as quality of life. Our senior political correspondent Grace Ho has more.
Well, Mr. Wong observed that the global public health care system is currently very fragmented and underfunded. And he also reiterated the recommendations of a G20 high-level panel earlier this year, which the senior minister, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, co-chairs, where he said that countries need better early warning systems, better systems for producing vaccines and distributing them. And all of this really requires, in the order of billions of dollars, which Mr. Wong, said was a premium worth paying. In the context of healthcare financing and economics, he also noted that healthcare costs continue to escalate and is a concern for finance ministers everywhere. The dilemma really involves a difficult balance between universal healthcare access, ensuring that it's high quality, while at the same time keeping the costs low. And in that context, he said that Singapore has nationalized its hospital insurance system and now has a mandatory universal risk pool, which will have to continue to be balanced against overconsumption and overservicing, by insurance and healthcare providers.
Speaking on another panel at the Singapore Health and Biomedical Congress, Director of Medical Services, Associate Professor Kenneth Mark, says it'll take months for hospitals to catch up with backlog arising from them accommodating the growing number of COVID-19 patients. As a result, many follow-up checks for people with chronic diseases and elective operations have been postponed. Prof. Mark says that Singapore has managed to mitigate concerns through the use of telehealth technologies, but quote, there will be a subgroup of patients who will come back with illnesses and diseases, perhaps worse off, because they have not come back to hospitals for regular follow-ups. 1,520 COVID-19 cases were in hospital as at yesterday. 255 needed oxygen support and 37 were in ICU. Of those very ill, 239 were above the age of 60. For the second day in a row, Singapore's COVID-19 cases exceeded 3,000, with 3,577 reported yesterday. They comprise 2,932 in the community, 630 from the dorms, and 15 imported. 3 seniors between 68 and 102 years old died from COVID-19 complications. In vaccine news, according to an Israeli study, immunity provided by the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine weakens significantly within months. Researchers found that protective antibodies decreased continuously during the 6 months after getting the second dose. Antibody levels were found to be lower in men than in women, as well as in older people compared with younger. The findings may help explain why there are breakthrough infections in persons who've had both doses. Sweden and Denmark are halting the use of Moderna's vaccine for younger people after reports of possible rare cardiovascular side effects. Individuals aged 30 or under in Sweden and those below 18 in Denmark will now be offered Pfizer's vaccine instead. Australia's largest city looks set to end its lockdown now that 70% of adults in the state of New South Wales are fully vaccinated. From Monday, October 11th, anyone in Sydney who's double-jabbed will be able to leave their homes for any reason, including visiting pubs, gyms and cinemas. Over in the US, Los Angeles will require residents and visitors to present proof of full vaccination to enter indoor areas at bars, restaurants and gyms. The mandate starts on November 4th and businesses could be fined up to $5,000 if they fail to enforce the rule. Time for live picks. You would have noticed that in the last 2 months, theatres have been coming back with live productions. Unfortunately, not among them is Keluarga Besar Encik Karim or the Karims, which was meant to be Checkpoint Theatre's return to live performances. But the good news is it's still available online, and here to tell us all about it is senior culture correspondent Ong Sofen. Hi Sof! Sof, could you tell us more about the plot?
Okay, the plot for the Karims is actually very simple. It's almost like a TV sitcom. It's about a family and they have like 2 daughters and the parents, and the new son-in-law moves in because they're waiting for their BTO. So what results when the new son-in-law moves in is a lot of family secrets get aired out, and then they have to learn to live with the new member of the family. And it's actually very sweet, and a lot of Singaporeans, I think, will identify with the storyline because it's something that's very familiar to them.
And I understand that although the Karims had to go online, the director didn't simply record a stage production, which is what is usually done when forced to pivot to the digital medium. What's the final result then?
Actually, the final result is really quite watchable. Like I said, it actually almost looks like a TV sitcom because the director, Claire Wong, she brought in a colleague, Joe Lim, who actually works on like commercials. So he's very familiar with the film editing process and the film directing process. So it actually looks like a production that you might see on TV. They have like a lot of close-ups of the actors, and that's great because the lead actors who play the parents, Rafat Hamzah and Dalifa Sharil, they are great actors and they really like make the most of the extreme close-ups. So it makes it feel very intimate and very accessible.
Thanks, Sofen. The last day to catch the Karims is October 15th. You can buy tickets on Sistic's website. Up next, we will have senior food correspondent Wong Ayuk, who is here to tell us about Palm Beach Seafood Restaurant. Now, hardly a new name in F&B as it's been around for 65 years. To celebrate its anniversary, Palm Beach is bringing back old favourites from its early days when it was a humble pushcart in Upper East Coast Road. Now let's have Ayuk on. Ayuk, tell us, what are the dishes that are making a comeback?
Hi, yes, Palm Beach is 65 this year, and it's brought back some dishes from its original menu. That was in 1956. I mean, I wasn't even born yet. But so it's a good chance to see what seafood dishes in those days were like. And one of the dishes that I tried is called deep fried golden phoenix with spicy sauce. Of course, it's not a real phoenix. It refers to a deep fried fish that's covered in this spicy, a little bit sour sauce made with lemongrass, chili padi, tamarind, sour plum, lime juice. Yeah, so you can imagine how sour it is. And then there's ketchup, garlic, shallots. And it's a bit like our sweet and sour fish, except the flavors are more complex because of all the different herbs and different ingredients. But the really odd thing for me is that it comes with a pile of papadum. which I've never experienced before, because papadum to me is always like with Indian food. But yeah, in those days, apparently, they're served with this spicy fish. The papadum is nice, very crispy. The fish is really nice. The sauce is very appetizing. But I thought I'd rather eat the fish with rice because of the strong flavors. Yeah, papadum is still a bit strange to me. The other dish that I try is a more common dish. It's rojak, which I think every one of us have tried before. And it's not really that different from what we have today, except that they also have a very unusual ingredient. It comes with century egg. And this time, I think it works pretty well because the century egg goes very well with the prawn, the shrimp paste that goes into the rojak and all the fruits and vegetables. So for me, that works. And there are other dishes that I recall eating. I mean, I'm not 65 years old, but I do remember eating them at Palm Beach earlier outlet at Kallang, which I've been before. And this is stir-fried mussels in soybean sauce and sambal. So it's also a spicy dish. And there's fried kangkong with cuttlefish, which is also like a dish that has like continued until today. So certain dishes I still remember. And of course, there's the restaurants like chili crab, which is perennial. I think it has never taken it off the menu. So these are some of the dishes that you can try at Palm Beach, yeah, and see what dishes from 1956 taste like.
Wow, well, thank you so much, Ayu. I'm certainly very excited for this one because I'm a huge fan of seafood. Well, Palm Beach Seafood Restaurant is at 1 Fullerton. Flip through the Friday pages in tomorrow's paper for live pics, and for more news, visit straitstimes.com. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. See you tomorrow on The Big Story.